It's not how he would have wanted it all to end. A knockout to Anthony Joshua in April was his second defeat in a row. Now, Wladimir Klitschko has called time on his career. And what a career it's been. A record of 64 wins and just 5 defeats. 53 of those wins were by knockout. Klitschko also has the second longest reign as heavyweight world champion, with 18 consecutive successful defences. Only Joe Louis has more. On top of all this, Klitschko also won gold at the 1996 Atlanta Olympics before turning professional. It's been 3 months since that defeat to Joshua. The 41-year-old has repeatedly been pressed on his future, but wanted to be sure that he was making the right decision.
I think about Angela Merkel, the German Chancellor, who says, "I need time to think about making difficult decisions. After I take my time, I make the right decision." And that's just how it is.
Klitschko leaves behind a sport that he dominated for more than a decade, along with his older brother Vitaly. After promising their mother they'd never fight each other, they swept aside all opponents in their way. Critics say their methodical and ruthless style drained the heavyweight division of all excitement. But as Wladimir hangs up his gloves for the final time, there's no denying that the sport of boxing has lost one of its all-time giants.
So let's discuss Klitschko's decision to retire with Ronald McIntosh. Now, he commentated on the Ukrainian's last ever fight, that defeat to Anthony Joshua back in April, and he joins us live from London. Great seeing you, Ronald. Now, are you surprised by this decision?
In the grand scheme of things, perhaps not, but rather surprised because there were talks that the fight was going to take place in Las Vegas, a rematch between himself and Anthony Joshua. Apparently he didn't want to fight here in the UK again. There were talks of it being at Cardiff in the Millennium Stadium with the roof closed. With the enticing prospect of fighting in Las Vegas, the fight capital of the world, talks got to a very advanced negotiation point out there. Anthony Joshua was out there, his promoter Eddie Hearn were out there, and I think they were confident that the lure of Las Vegas was going to bring Wladimir Klitschko back to the table, back into the ring to contest a rematch of their first epic contest at Wembley, but it's not to be, and he's chosen to call time on what has been a magnificent career.
Well, how disappointed will the boxing fans be not seeing a rematch in Vegas against Anthony Joshua?
I think there may be some initial disappointment that the rematch isn't going to take place, given how titanic the first tussle at Wembley in front of 90,000 fans was. But when you consider what Wladimir Klitschko has achieved in his career, the 1996 Olympic super heavyweight champion, 21 years as a professional, an 11-year unbeaten run after he teamed up with Manny Stewart and devised a style that was almost impenetrable, very difficult to beat. I think when you look at the totality of his work, people will say that he's making a decision that he's happy with, and he's gone out on his own terms. And even though he lost that contest against Anthony Joshua, the manner of his performance was such that it's probably a defeat that enhanced his standing and gave him the acclaim and the accolades that were so often missing during his decade of dominance.
Well, most definitely. Well, let's have a little chat about his career. And as we just heard in the reports, Klitschko has the second longest reign as the heavyweight world champion. How will he be remembered?
I think he'll be remembered as a dominant champion, thoroughly professional, never in less than prime physical condition. But in terms of when we're talking about the term of greatness, the rather nebulous term of greatness, it's more than about quantifiable statistics and empirical accomplishments. We've already waxed lyrical about those during that decade-long run of dominance in the heavyweight division. But I've interviewed Mike Tyson during the course of my career, and he quoted to me, when I asked him about his place in history, he said, he quoted to me a mantra from his trainer and mentor, Cus D'Amato. And he said, history doesn't necessarily remember the best fighters, it remembers the most exciting fighters. And that perhaps is an intangible criteria where Wladimir Klitschko may come up short, because even though he was dominant during that decade-long run as a champion of over 9 years, 7 months and 7 days, he wasn't perhaps always the most exciting. Fights would go long. He's got a terrific knockout ratio, but they were often devoid of drama. And that may count against him when it comes to looking at his all-time He's ranking amongst the all-time greats, but most certainly a man who dominated his era, dominated for the best part of a decade, and is most certainly an outstanding champion.
OK, well, let's have a look at his future. What do you think the future holds for Klitschko? He already said in the video that he's been planning his next step, planning his next career, but what do you think that involves?
I think he's the type of person that can do pretty much anything he likes. He and his brother made history in the sense that they were the first PhD graduates, doctors of philosophy, to become heavyweight champions of the world. James Bone Crusher Smith, who was a WBA heavyweight champion, he was the first graduate with a bachelor's degree to become a heavyweight champ. These guys took it one step further. As he mentioned in his retirement speech, he's an entrepreneur, he's a hotelier, he's a goodwill ambassador for various causes around the world. And moreover, he's very engaged and he's very passionate about whatever he chooses to do. And I think whatever he chooses to do, because of his profile, because of the manner in which he conducted himself as a consummate professional and decent gentleman during his time in boxing, I think a lot of doors are going to be open for him. And I think he's going to make a significant impact in whatever it is he chooses to do next.
He can do whatever he wants. Ronald, thank you very much for coming on to Beyond the Game.